Well,
We're
welcome
good.
everybody to the Ankoreaux Collective podcast. We have a very special guest today, Jason Pockrandt. He is a transformational life coach, an author of father-daughter conversations, and a TEDx speaker. I'm just super excited to have you on the show today. Thanks for being here, Jason.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Happy to connect with a fellow dad doing business.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So I'd love to just start off with talking a little bit about what gives you energy. When you're not working.
Oh, when I'm not working, usually it's music. For me, it's always been like, it's just singing and dancing. My daughter and I do a lot of daddy-daughter dance-offs in the living room. We used to do a bunch of my Facebook lives we do with her and I in the car, just kind of belting it out to, Demi Lovato and stuff. And she sings so much better than I do as well. So she knows half the words and I don't. But whenever I can get a break, it's either reading a book, taking some downtime, or getting just jazzed up with some good old Mercy Me or whoever else sets the mood right. Yesterday
Dude.
was a Justin Bieber break for Lennox and I.
Yeah. Oh man, Justin Bieber, that
Oh,
song Yummy or whatever, that song comes on and my little 1-year-old son just starts like getting
yeah,
crunk. I'm like, "What are you doing, dude? This is amazing."
yeah. Oh, yeah. I've gotten Lennox to the point now where we do this when she goes, yummy, yum. And now she'll just bust it out randomly. And Chandler's like, babe, what are you doing to her? I'm like, just look at her go. She goes, yum. She goes, daddy, 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 yummy, yummy, yummy. I'm like, listen, we gotta slow down a little bit there. People are gonna wonder about why I keep playing Justin Bieber for you.
Right. Yeah, especially after hearing the lyrics of that song, I'm like, "Oh, is this actually a song
I
I should
know.
be jamming and hanging out with my kids?" They like the beat though.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
That's funny, man.
That's good.
Um,
That's cool. Your
what does
kids
your
catching on so early.
what's that?
That's cool. Your boys catching on so early.
I know. I,
Jeez.
I couldn't believe it. He's definitely got some rhythm. I'm a drummer, and so
Nice.
both of my kids both have rhythm. I think just in their blood, and especially him though. Lately, man, he's just dancing and drumming on stuff. He goes out to the garage. I have a little cheap electric drum set, and he just likes to hit the tom, with the the ballot stick. It's pretty funny.
Very cool.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, tell me a little bit about this book that you wrote. Father-daughter conversations. I find being a dad. We especially on the first one, it's like, oh, how can I not mess this up? And I think as we live life and go through the importance of just really asking them, hey, what do you need? What is how could I be a better dad? Like, are you seeing things that I'm doing that you wish I would just stop? I asked her
Yeah.
that last night, and it was such an amazing response. Luckily, it wasn't really negative towards her, but she was like, maybe in so many words, she was just saying I could work on my patience when it came to our 1-year-old son. It's like, slow down and just figure out what he wants instead of getting so frustrated. And I'm like, wow, if it was just that easy.
Your daughter told you that?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. That was last night.
Um, well, I'm a segue into that because I love that you hit on that point actually. Um, so Father-Daughter Conversations was the book, the second book that I wrote in a condensed version, right? I lost my dad in 2004. He got hit by a drunk driver, got connected to a bad doctor, suffered an addiction battle with prescription pills, went through that for a while. And then when he was 47, I was 17 years old, we ended up losing my dad. So that happened, and I had ended up writing the first book shortly after that called The Confident Father's Guidebook, and that was 5 Steps to Personal Transformation, which is just sort of my journey of what I was going through. My coach at the time, kind of revamping life and figuring out how to accept all that. So fast forward in 2015, I found out I was going to be a dad. 28 years old, fatherless boy, fatherless man, now fatherless father. And I was like, wow, it's a girl, and I have no idea what the hell I'm going to do. And I was like getting online, I'm looking around, and I was like, oh, raise a boy, raise a man, raise a warrior, teach him how to be a lion. And I was like, there ain't nothing for dads to teach how to. I was like, there's nothing out there for us men to figure out what to do with a girl. I was like, they're not boys. They don't stand up and pee the same way as us. It's a whole different game. And so I literally set out on a mission. and I was doing some blog posts and writing for the Good Men Project at the time, and I put out this call to action and was like, "Hey, dads, all the smart dads, the guys that have been around the block, you've done it." I said, "I need you guys to write a chapter and simply answer one question. What would you tell a brand new dad of a daughter? Like, what sage advice would you give me on how to raise this girl?" So I ended up coming back with 10 other dads. My very first coaching client put a chapter in, his dad, retired pastor friend of mine, a couple other people. And so I had ended up with 10 other chapters from dads. And then each of their chapter, I took their story and I handcrafted the most amazing, most powerful conversation starters, questions for self-reflection that I put at the end of each chapter based on their story. So that dads like me and dads like you, all these other good dads that just want to be better dads, can read the book, read a chapter, 4 pages, and then sit and reflect on the questions, and then go and have actual conversations with their daughter, reflect, engage, sit with them, talk, learn, explore, and then simply become better dads. And so that's father-daughter conversations in a nutshell. Yeah, my pride and joy is the conversation starters, because I believe that nothing is more important than the conversations that we have and the connections that we have with people. And I've been doing my Facebook Lives for the past 94 days straight now. I've done a live video every day for the last 94 days on a 100-day challenge. Yeah, and yesterday was the first time I was like, "Hey, look, I have an ask. Like, you guys need to just read the book. Like, and if you don't even read the book, just get the conversation starters I have and just go talk to your daughter like you did. Just sit down and ask them," which is funny because I did that with Lennox a couple weeks ago and asked her, like, what am I doing and stuff. And she basically shot me down for not being around for breakfast or not waking up in the morning and not being home enough. And I said, "Well, I'm home. She's like, you're on calls all the time. You do like relationships with people. Mom doesn't do that stuff." And I'm like, "Well, yeah." So
out of the mouths of our kids. That's the live Facebook video that I saw that encouraged me to just, I was like, that's so brilliant. Why don't I just ask her? Like, so I'm always checking in with her now. I'm like, how's life? Like, how is life in general is a question that I'm just asking her, like, just trying to gauge, like, is she happy? Is she sad? Is she frustrated? Like, what's going on? Like, what could make life better right now? And most of the time, when she responds, it's little things like, "Man, I wish I had some candy right now," or something so trivial, but to her it's not. But
well, the fact that you're doing it right now, like, what most people out there listening aren't going to understand, right, is the magnitude of you doing it right now when they're 6 years old is the equivalent of what I tell people that they need to do when they're teenagers, right? Like, when you're a dad and you get to that point where, and one of the chapters in the book was from a really good friend of mine, Sean Ackerman, and he co-wrote it with his 2 daughters. And it's the idea, right? Like, when we can't communicate with our teenage daughters and they don't want to talk to us and they don't want to open up, right? Like, dads have never asked their kids what do they want, right? So I have this video I did before, right? How overtime is stupid time. And if you ever give more than 40 hours, I don't think you should give more than 40 hours to a job anyway. But if you work 40 hours a week and then you put in more and then you're like, I can't build a business, I can't do anything different, I can't take care of my family, right? And you're like, well, 90% of the time it's because you're putting the addition on the house, or you're buying the other car, or you're taking them to Disneyland, or you're doing whatever. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody said to me one day, we've never stopped and asked our children what they actually want. Like, because I've had dads tell me they've done that for years and years and years. And then they've asked their daughters, and all their daughter said was, I just want dad to be at my soccer game on Saturday. I don't want the boat. I don't want the trampoline. I don't want, like, but nobody asked them. So for you to take the time at 6 years old to be like, what do you want? Like, you can know, and they'll tell you, they'll teach us how to be the best dads that we can be for them if we just stop for a moment and don't look at what we think we need to do for them, or what we think we need to give them, or how we think we need to best provide for them. and they'll tell you. So
That's
that's
amazing. I
awesome.
keep hearing the pages of the book turn. Hold it up. For do you have it handy?
Yeah, yeah. This one.
Yeah, father daughter conversations, and this you can find this on Amazon,
Yeah.
dude.
So like at the end of each chapter, right? And I even put line pages in there, so
Oh,
people can just you can just like it's
look
my
it up.
vision of the book, and then I'm gonna do a father daughter journal, and I want to make an app, all kinds of stuff, because
Yeah,
dads they're just like we don't know what to do, and I'm like, trust me, if my
dude.
6-year-old can tell me, I wish you would wake up with us in the morning, cool, then like I should just do what they ask because
Right. Well,
I don't
I
know.
think how cool would it be too? Like my mind kind of went to the when you had the conversation starters, and you may have already thought of this, but what about like a deck of cards that have all those conversation starters? So almost like the very vile game Cards Against Humanity, but
Yeah,
cards for conversations. Like and it's just a whole deck of cards that like sit around the table and kick around conversation. Like that could be so powerful.
would you do that? Would you do
I
that with your dog?
I would get the card deck. Yeah, we for
Mhm.
one we love games and we love to sit around and just converse. And half the time it's like, well, what do you want to talk about next? So
Mm,
having cues I think would be so helpful.
that'd be cool. I've thought that, because I was like, ooh, tarot cards. I've thought about it. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah,
It was just funny the conversation I had with my buddy Vinny yesterday when I was like, I was like, dads don't buy the book. They're like, I can't read it. It's too long. I don't have time to read. And Vinny was like, just give him the questions then. Like, I don't even care if you read the book. Like, just take the questions in. And that was
yeah.
he had sent a text to his friend, just one of the questions. His buddy was like, dude, I got to get that. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's cooler than most people are telling me.
Right.
But I
Oh, that's
digress.
awesome. I can't wait to dive into it. That kind of leads me to, the importance of being present. When we're with our family members and especially our kids, it's hard, and I don't know, you may relate to this, you may not, but for me, to just actually unplug from the day. Like I don't really have set hours because I do work from home. We don't choose to daycare. We're homeschooling, so it's like man alive, I'm working at weird hours of the day, usually 4:35 a.m. I start my morning routine, get cranking at like 6 a.m. to hopefully get 2 to 3 hours of solid work done before they even wake up. And then the evenings again are and I find little pockets of time, but man, I find it so hard that like when I'm up there with them, my mind is always racing with, oh, I got to respond to that email, or oh, that person needs instruction for this project, and so like to actually unplug and be present with your kids, and your wife, even your friends, the people you hang around with when you're not doing work. What are your tips and tricks, I guess, as far as like being present in the moment?
Oh, that's a, I'm gonna give the disclaimer that this is a battle that I'm still fighting daily. My wife told me yesterday, she says, I was like, I was getting ready to take a shower or something, and I'm sitting there in the bathroom, and she's like, babe, do you always think about business? Is your mind just always going? I was like, no, 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 no. I'm thinking about my family and how, I want to take a nice vacation or go somewhere. But to do that, I have to think about business because that's the only way we have to provide. So yes, basically, I'm always thinking about business. Um, but what I found is, well, I've always been a believer that I haven't always been, but recently I've come to believe this concept that our kids don't care about quality time. They just want time. So your daughter, like we put this pressure on ourselves and this expectation that, we need to spend quality time with our daughters. And if we're not giving enough of like the absolute best or, this perfect night that we planned with them, or like we have to be there to before dinner starts and we have to cook dinner with them and we have to go through it all with them, right? Like my wife and I do this a lot of the times, right? Where it's like, hey, I'll just again like with Lennox, I'll just let her guide what she wants, So I'll be in here just cranking out some stuff, and she'll pop out and say, "Hey, Dad, will you come in?" Yesterday she came in. She's like, "Dad, will you help me? Will you come help me make these peanut butter balls?" Chandler and her were out in the kitchen, and they'd already done all of it, but all Lennox needed was me to take that 30 minutes with her to just put the peanut butter balls together, be there for that moment, put them in the oven, hang out for a minute, color the picture, and then she's good. And then I jump back in the office and I crank out, for another hour, right? So I used to always feel the same way. I'd feel the guilt about I'm working all the time and then I ignore it. I'm working all the time and I felt like I needed to have 2 hours scheduled just with Lennox, or I had to make sure I was just this or that, right? And what I've come to find is being intentional about selecting the activities and the time that matter most to her, and then just plugging in my work around that. So like at nighttime, like Chandra's the, all right, Lennox, get ready for bed, get your bath around, get dressed, get ready. Like Chandra's all about that. But then when it's time to read a book before she goes to sleep, Lennox needs me in there for the book. Yeah. So like being aware of those things, I think, is far more important and more beneficial for a dad to do than to just think, or to put the pressure on themselves first to think they need to be there, every night for bedtime all the time.
Right.
Well, every morning for breakfast all the time. So
I think you said some really good things there. And even outside of work, just the daily chores of working for your house and for your family, it's like the dishes. Like last night I was like, dude, I'm sorry, man, I'm cranking on these dishes right now. You're like, those darn dishes, it's them again. That was so funny because, well, for one, our dishwasher's been broken for like the last 5 or 6 weeks. I haven't found a replacement. It's like just the power cord. I got a new power cord, put it in this little where it connects to the motherboard. Yeah. Fired up the breaker, came in and spark, like, dude, almost flame. I'm like, well, I must have did something wrong. And so my wife's like, well, I'm pretty sure that when it sparks like that, it means the whole thing probably won't work again. So we're like, yeah. Do we get a repairman to come and check it and pay that $125, or do we just get the $500 dishwasher and throw a new one in? It's like, those are the things. But anyway, so I'm doing the dishes, and they're decorating for Christmas last night. We like to bring out the Christmas stuff before Thanksgiving. We're kind of one of those families. Right. And my daughter had her own little like Christmas tree. Who's this? What's your cat's name?
Midnight.
Midnight.
Black cat.
Do you have any other animals, or is just the one cat?
That's just the one right now. My wife had this super awesome, crazy, angry orange cat for like 6 years, 7 years since we've been together almost or whatever. Then he got sick a couple years back, and then we just picked up the cutest little kitten for Lennox. Not long ago, and we picked up this tiny little kitten we adopted on PetSmart. And she absolutely loved that thing. That was after last May with everything we talked about. And we had him like 6 months, and then he got just super sick, and we had to put him down. So I was like, no more cats. I'm done. We just bought a house, so we'll get a dog. But I told my wife not till I was like, we're not getting the dog. All right, I just got the house. Like, let's just relax. So, no. In short, no, just the one cat, just the blacks.
Cat. That's amazing. But so we were talking about the importance of being present, and even with chores and stuff. Like my daughter always wants to play, and I'm doing dishes, and she's like, "Hey, Daddy, could you come help me with these ornaments?" It came with these like little strings, and they wanted you to tie these strings on every single ornament. And I came over there, and I'm like, man, I'm never going to get, my thought was I'm never going to get these dishes done, because as soon as I go over there, I get pulled into another task in the house, And so I'm already a little bit frustrated, and I sit down, and I'm like, really? They're going to have us tie each an individual, like this is these things. Like, I'm not doing this. Like, this is going to take us an hour and a half just tying these things. So like, we have hooks somewhere. Like, find the hooks, and I'll come help you. But like, I always find myself trying to, even when I'm doing chores and stuff, try my best to like, that 10 minutes is like you said earlier, it's like all they need is that time. And if I take them and put them first, that 10 minutes is like hours to them,
Oh yeah. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. If I can get Lennox will just, she watched America's Got Talent, and there's a couple on there that did salsa dancing called Bad Salsa. So now she makes me salsa dance in the kitchen. And every time anybody comes over, she goes, Daddy, show them our salsa dance. So I got a twirl for a minute, or we got a shimmy for a minute, and then I spin her 3 times, and then she falls backwards like this, and I catch her. I've dropped her a few times, so I'm like, whoa, and then she goes, ah. It's called Bad Salsa. I'm like, but that's it. Like, if you can't say no. You're like, oh no, Lennox, but I'm always just like, come on, again, like it's cute, it's fun, and then it's like it was cute, it was fun, but like 5-6 times throughout the night, you're like, but that's it, man. Like we want an hour to work, We're like, honey, you tell the wife, like, I need 2 hours today, and they're like, all right. And for us, it's like we need it. And so just imagine all they need was literally the 5 minutes to dance or the 5 minutes of Justin Bieber. Like if you just stop and you're like, all right, listen to the song. They're like, thanks, Dad. And then they're back to playing or back to work,
Yep, it's so good. Yeah, I love that.
If we learned how to do that as well for ourselves, if we were like, oh, cool, I just got a half an hour to like crank it out. Thanks. I'm now go talk to my wife. Oh, I just got an hour to like move forward.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah. Well, I think that leads to the next topic here of kind of showing up for people and giving it your best on the business side of things versus showing up for your family and giving them the best. And I always try and like think of this as we start the day with like a full cup. It's like here's all the love that we have to give out. And we're always like in meetings like these or with our creative team, and we're giving all day. And then at the end of the day, it's like, if there's not much more love to give, then do they just get grumpy old dad? And how fair is that to them? That's, a typical thing that can happen in our house that I'm trying to be better about is like, I'd rather sprinkle out, while my tank is full, give them moments throughout the day, because at the end of the day, like, oh, now I have to turn on and be 100% for my daughter and my son and my wife, that needs me. And it's like, how do you find that you're kind of leveraging that tank on your end?
Well, for me, it's kind of I'm the atypical in the sense that I was telling Vinny this yesterday on the phone, right? I've always been a night owl. Like by nature, I just can't stand waking up early. So I'm like 7-8 o'clock at night and I'm turned on and I'm ready to like sit down and try to crank some stuff out till like midnight. And then I'm like, oh. And so I had this conversation before and I was really thinking about it because we talked about like filling your love tank or filling your tank, right? Like serving from ourselves first and giving to others. And I really thought about it for a minute. I was like, man, but I can't get up at 5 in the morning and do my morning routine and do this and have quiet time and all that stuff, right? And it really struck me. A friend of mine, Jay Beckham, who's in another group of ours, he was like, dude, it doesn't matter if you fill your tank at night as long as you get it recharged for the next day. So like it blew my mind to think like, oh, I'm losing out because if I don't wake up and fill my tank in the morning to then give to everyone else, then I'm done for. And I was like, but wait a minute. I can just like fill up the night before and then have gas in the car to go the next day. So for me, it's kind of like filling my tank at night is kind of like where I wind down, where I relax, where I read a book, where I do whatever. And then it allows me at least most days to be able to wake up, give some of my best to the family, the wife and the daughter before the day gets away of just like fires and constant things of business and going throughout the mission. And then at the end of the night, though, I'm pretty much like, all right, y'all do your thing, put Lennox to bed. Like dinner's over, you take Lennox, go to bed. Like I'll be out here. If I catch my wife for an hour at night, like that's cool. We're lucky. Otherwise, like, but it's still a hard balance because my wife is up at 7 in the morning, wants to have quiet time, coffee time, and cannot at all wake up without Lennox 5 minutes later popping up at 7:30. So Chandra's like, I got nothing. And I'm like, oh, I'm still sleeping. I was up all night filling my tank. But
jeez. That makes sense though. It's a never ending we're just always trying to balance that out. And I was just curious to hear your thoughts. So thank you for sharing those.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of prioritizing like well, it's always about prioritizing, right? Like there's that illusion of balance. And I think that's a complete lie. Like we can never balance, if I spent the same amount on work as I did with my wife, then I'm good. Or if I gave my daughter the same amount of time that I work today, then I'm good, right? Like, and there's so many nuances of looking in that, right? Like the idea of business, like it doesn't matter if we spend 2 hours working today as a matter of you just moved the ball forward in 30 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. So if you can move the ball in business forward in 30 minutes, then maybe that allows you to intentionally spend an hour with your daughter playing the drums, right?
Yeah.
Then you can go do another 45 or an hour. You might need an hour and a half to really knock out something for business. But then do we as business owners and dads have the courage after that to stop and go and actually watch Elf for an hour with our daughter? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
That's what she's watching this morning.
Yeah.
Um,
We just watched
but
it
like,
a
if
few
you think
days ago.
about that, if you think about think about how simple that sounds, yet how profoundly difficult it is for us to do it, especially me or you. Because Chandler and I are both all in. We're both at home. We're both full time doing the business. We're both homeschooling, managing Lennox. Like, there is no structure and routine, right? Like, there is no perfect way. Be like, hey, we drop off at 8. Chandler and I can just work till 3 and we're good, Like,
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard. It's still tough for us. So I'd be curious sometime to know how you do it, actually, because I don't know.
Yeah,
You seem
man.
like
I
you're
mean,
doing things.
it's like I said, it's I'm trying to do work on that the best, and always improve myself. I'm actually we're reading a book called Changes, which actually Curran introduced us to. We had I don't know if you were in that group with Michael Dietrich.
Carmichael?
No, Michael Dietrich
Oh,
Chastain is the author of this one. And
oh, that
dude,
one.
this
Okay.
this book's amazing. The Busy Professional's Guide to Reducing Stress, Accomplishing Goals, and Mastering Adaptability. Like, there's so many gold nuggets in here, especially just approaching things from a master's mindset instead of a victim mindset. Like, I always found myself, like, if my wife said, "How come the trash still hasn't been taken out?" Like, I would approach that as a victim mindset, like, "Oh, well, I heard you ask me to do it. I just didn't prioritize it right in that very moment." And so, like,
Right.
oh, what I hear is I'm not good enough or I'm not doing what she's asking, when really it's like I did hear that, I just haven't got to it yet. And so trying to just like be more conscious of how I respond. And just in the last chapter, he mentions a 3-week no complaining challenge, and
Nice.
he said it's typically it takes 4 to 5 months to complete that challenge. You put this like bracelet on, and every time you catch yourself complaining, you just snap the bracelet and flip it over, and it restarts the count until the next time you complain.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I know, right? But like, man, it changed there. I came home that night and I was like, "Hey, so I got this new challenge for us. We're gonna try and not complain." And my wife's like, "Who is this new person? Like, I love this new person." Like, because I was catching her complaining, she was catching me complaining, and now it's like this is the true direction to being more positive. Because that's who I'm really known for in the community and outside of my family is I'm always smiling, I'm always giving, I'm always happy, and then my wife's like, "How come everybody gets that version of Dusty and I get the grumpy man?" I'm like,
Ooh,
"I'm
yeah, my
sorry."
wife said
Yeah,
that
it
too.
hurts. It's like, dang, it's like, why is that? I need to put them first and make sure that they're getting, like you just said, towards the top of the day, the top of that love tank. I need to be giving them first and then sprinkle out through, kind of flip the role for myself. Cause it's like, I've always just been not so intentional when it comes to planning a date night every week or every other week, or planning, specific intentional time with my family. And then when I am with my family, they see me on my phone half the time. I'm like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I just need this one quick email." It's just it sucks.
So why do you think it's so hard? Because I mean I think for us, I'm curious to hear what you think about it. But if you're anything like me, right? Like my wife said the same thing because I'm naturally like I'm like super social, super positive, outgoing. I'll talk to anybody. I'll like I can bounce around. Like I get my energies out there, right?
Mm.
Um, but then there's those times where you come home too, right? And you're just like for me, I'm out there doing it all, and then I come back and I'm exhausted. And then it's the idea, right? Like we just get comfortable and complacent, and we're like, well, we don't need to impress our wives. Like we don't need to, like I don't need to close the deal with my wife. I didn't need to like get her to want to email me back when I met her at the event or
Mhm.
whatever. And so you're right. And I feel like I do that. I come home and I'm like, oh yeah, babe. And then she's all like, oh, I feel like my wife told me yesterday, actually, she goes, I probably shouldn't say this. She goes, I feel like you talk to other women more than you talk to me, meaning like not like in the bad way, but like just
Yeah,
business. And that's
yeah,
my personality, right? Like my dad died. I was raised by my mom. I'm naturally more in tune with my emotional side anyway. Like
mm,
I've had a hard time with male friends, right? Like I've always just been in relationship with women, like older women, no one my age, right? Like I
Yeah.
can't get in college, I couldn't get young girls my age to talk to me, but like I worked at a daycare with nothing but women, right? And they
Yeah.
all love Jason, right? And so like I can just hit it off, right? And I told her, I was like, well, that's I was like, well, I said something stupid, right? Like, well, they compliment me, or they compliment me more, or something, right? Like that. And it was just kind of like she had the same realization though, right? Of like yeah, like my wife doesn't tell me all the time, wow, babe, those emails that you just put together for us, that was amazing, you know. But like if I find someone on the internet and I help them do a thing, I feel good, and I'm like, oh, cool, I helped you with your business, and they're like, oh my god, thank you so much, and I'm like, yeah, like.
That
But if we
makes
think about it, right, like it's hard to make that prioritization. Like no ill will or no bad
yeah.
intentions at all. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it
But
comes
like
down to kind of the love languages, you know, like if we half of us are navigating life without even knowing what our love language is or what our spouse's love language is or what our friends or our coworkers or what
mhm,
anybody's love language is, and it's like trying to go fix the sink and all you have is a hammer and a nail, and you're like, man, I got the wrong tool. Like if I knew this
yeah,
person's love language, I could, yeah, take the right tool out of the box and actually have a conversation where they feel heard and validated and so much
for
better. So
sure.
I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that? Like just love language in general. But
What what's yours?
so I feel like from what you just said, I'm a lot like you. Like I like words of affirmation. Like when
Yeah,
people are like, "Oh yeah, that product you made was so amazing," I'm like,
yeah,
"Yes, I'm heard. I feel good." Like
right.
100%. I feel like my wife is a little bit of that, but she also likes gifts. She likes surprises. Like, when I
Okay.
leave like little sticky notes on the, on
Yeah,
the get the gas gauge of the car, and she's like, "Oh, sweet, that was a nice little note,"
yeah.
like little things like that. I think is definitely hers, but I could be wrong. I'll have her watch this and be like, "Wow, Dusty, you still don't get it, do you?"
Yeah, no, we I'm a huge fan of that. I'm re-listening to it right now on Scribd. You get like unlimited audiobooks and everything for $10 a month. And I found like 12 or 15 books. Like I'm like every time I'm like, oh, a new book, I go and find it. And I'm like, oh, so I got like 15 of them saved. I'm like, oh, this is the best $10 I've ever spent, honey. Um, but yeah, we're I'm definitely words of affirmation and acts of service, which is dangerous. If you're acts of service, you just get really lazy. You're just like, man, I'm just like, come on, babe. I told her yesterday. Oh man, I was giving her crap yesterday about plating my food, and and she's like, because she's like, I don't want to clean up. I don't want to do the dishes. I'll make the dinner. I'll cook. I'll make it all. I'll plate your food. Like I just don't want to clean up. And I'm like, I can do that. But then again, I'm working late last night. Chandler's in the living room. Hey, honey, dinner's done. I don't go out. Lennox comes walking in. Dad, dinner's ready. All right, I'll be right there. I don't come out. I walked out there yesterday, and she goes, babe, um, I'm not gonna plate your dinner if you're not gonna come out on time because your food's gonna be cold. I'm like, okay, eat my squash. But yeah, no, it's I think it's one of the most important things you can do. And like you said, if you could figure out love languages from just other people, like your business partners, your clients, like if you can figure it out, like yeah, like everything would be so much easier. Because then we can communicate better. But like again, that's that stuff. If you get too advanced with strangers and they're like, "What are you talking about? Why are you asking me?"
Right?
If I like
Yeah.
certain questions, I'm like, "Oh, because I care and I don't want to just like try to force you into something or like try to do business the way I think you should or I should
Yeah.
or."
And that conversation, I think when you go in deep right off the bat, is this, I cut out the small talk, like, "Oh, how's the weather? How's the how's the," it's like I feel like small talk is just such a, like, it drains me. I don't know about you, but like
Dude,
I love going deep, like right off the bat, and like
are
really
you
connecting.
serious?
What's that?
Are you serious?
I'm serious, yeah. Like
You are the only you're the only person I've ever met who said that, and that is the that is the single best illustration of me in the mirror right now.
really?
I have literally for the past, I don't know, 6, 7 years told people, like, you could quote me. I say, I don't care about the weather. I don't care about sports. I don't care about politics. I'm going to meet you and I want to say, hey, like, what's your goals, man? Like, what kind of hobbies you got? Or like, what do you love? And they're like, and I'm like, No, what do you like really want to do? Like, do you want to start a business? You want to do stuff? Like, you don't want to just be a financial advisor. Like, I know that. Like, we all know that. And then it's like, dude, I met the deputy prosecuting attorney at my church, and I was having a conversation with him, right? Super kind of like cool guy, reserved, kind of laid back a little bit though, right? And I'm like, oh, hey man, like blah blah blah, like what's going on? What do you like? Oh no, I'm not. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to do something. That'd be cool. You do Amazon? Oh, that's really cool. But I mean, I'd like to make leather shoes. And I'm like, that's random. Like, what do you mean? No, like high end, made in Italy, like custom made, $150, $200 leather shoes. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, why does that not pop out? Like, because I'm the guy who's like, well, let's make it happen. Let's figure it out. Well, I work all the time. My job's too stressful. I can't. I'm just like, I'm ranting now, but I can meet people, right? And you can tell in the beginning when they're just going to be like, they'll give you the hard no of like, no, man, I'd love to do something, but my job just takes too much. Like, you can tell the people that are just completely, I'm never going to try. My job, my professional job will be my excuse until I'm broken, until it completely just breaks me or they fire me or whatever happens. That always happens, because it always happens. And I'm just like, all right, well, nice talking to you, I guess. We'll go find Dusty, you know.
Dude, when I encounter those conversations or those people, like that is where I start to get energy from, because to breathe life into that person, oh my gosh, like when you see the light bulb just a little glimpse like start to flicker in them, it's like that's what I love to see in people. The person that's working the overnight shift at the grocery store over and over again because it's their second job and they're just trying to put food on the table and make it happen for their family. It's like, but they want to go make the leather shoes, or they want to go, make a tour company, or they want to go. Everybody has a dream, right? Everybody has a passion buried so deep, but there's some kind of wall that was built that they've been hurt too many times. And it's like, why would I even tell you what I really dream about or really passionate about? Because they don't believe in that moment, and I think instilling some belief into them and encouraging them, like, well, here's how, or maybe it's not even here's how, maybe it's just listening to them and trying to pull it out and say, take that wall down. I don't know. I love that moment in conversation.
Yeah. No, I those are some of my finest as well. Like the work I do with the coaching and stuff is always, in 2012 as it started, Live to Give was, like how to help dads dig deeper, discover who and what matters most, and help you live a life worth, live a legacy worth leaving in your family and community. Like that's it. And it's like, it's just so hard sometimes to find. It's hard to find those men that are willing to do that work until they've had that breaking point, or they've had that experience, or they've had that epiphany that shook them enough to let them open themselves up enough to start exploring it.
Yeah.
Like for me, it was the moment. I had a moment in group coaching when I was 27, I think. 27 years old, and stood in my coach's office, two other women and Terry, and then I was standing there and I started crying, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be in the box. I don't want to be in the box. I don't want to just work for somebody. I don't want to do this. Oh, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know what to do and I can't do it. Terry walked to the back of his office. This is my coach. Comes back out with a little brown box, threw it on the ground at my feet, and looked at me and said, if you want to stay in the box, Jason, then get back in it. And I picked it up and I ripped it, and I started bawling like a baby, and I ripped it up into shreds. And I'm like, I don't want to be in the box. I don't want to do it. I know I could do something different. And I still to this day have a picture of all the pieces of cardboard in the box standing at my feet, and everybody's just looking at me. And Terry goes, Jason, what you just did right there, he's like, what you just had happen? No, he's like, most people don't realize that until they're 80 years old. And I guess I missed the most important part, but I also stood there realizing, like, losing my dad. I said, losing my dad was the best thing that happened to me and the worst thing that happened to me. I was like, it's everything that happened to me was supposed to happen. Like, I get to do it all. I get to do it now. I get to be, you know, I get to be a good dad. I get to help other dads. I get to help teach it. I get to help share the message. I get to, like, I don't have to just go get a job and get a career and hope it works out.
Yeah. Dude, that's so good. That's so powerful. What does the word father mean to you?
Woo! Boy, asking all the tough questions today, Rusty.
Rusty Dusty.
Um, asterisk disclaimer, guys, his name is Dusty.
Yeah.
What does father mean? I don't think I've ever really thought about it. I think the word father means stronghold. I think it means foundation. I think it means legacy. I think it means presence. I don't know. I think being a father just means that, I don't know, it means power, like in the best way possible. When you think about how we love ourselves is exactly how our daughters and our sons are going to love themselves. How as a father we treat our as a husband, how we treat our spouse, literally creates the definition of what our daughters think is acceptable for the relationships that they'll get into. Like, all encompassing, like all of that in a nutshell. As a father, when we wake up in the morning and think, hey, how do I want to show up in the world today for my daughters, for my son, for my spouse, so that we can be those things? Because that's legacy. Like, I think being a father is the single greatest vehicle to live a legacy that we could ever have, in so many ways. And I think that's what I think being a father means. I think
Dude,
that's
that's
the
so
word.
powerful. Actually, it like hit me because it's like when I've always until now heard the word legacy, I always think about how are you leaving your legacy behind for the community, for other people, for for me, I guess I didn't think. Well, what about the legacy for my family, for my daughter, and for their family, for the next generation of the Jenkins family? Like, what does the
Yeah.
legacy look like within just family? I feel like, man, that's a whole nother podcast we could get into. That's exciting stuff, man.
Yeah.
um what were you gonna say?
Um, I was trying to think of what. Yeah, it's just interesting. Just on that point, I'm trying to think of my thought to formulate the thought. But when I gave my TEDx talk, when I gave the TEDx talk, I remember there's a point where I said I think about legacy, and I think about these work boots that my father left for me, and I think about, my dad spending all those years just, putting on the work boots and kicking rocks, trying to just get by. And I always tell people, the moment you become a father, you have two choices. You can either choose to do what's responsible, or you can choose to do what's right. And what's responsible is typically, well, now I'm a dad, now I need a job, now I just do whatever it takes, I just slug through life, right, to provide, right? Or you can do what's right, which is, I'm a dad, and now I need to decide who I want to be and what I want to be and what I want my life to look like and who I want to become in this world. Because, like you said, that's what you directly impact your family with, your spouse first, your daughters, your sons, and then you can work outward to your community. So when I tell people, it's about living a legacy in your family and your community, right? Because everyone does it backwards. We all want to start, right? And we want to feel good, and we want to get all our good goods, and we want to volunteer on all the boards everywhere, and we want to help my community with this and help my community with that. And that's great if you're serving yourself and your family first.
Yeah.
If you're not teaching your daughter how to be a woman, how to grow up and be a strong, confident woman, like, why are you volunteering at the women's shelter? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why are you, like, and don't anyone take that the wrong way, but like,
Yeah.
why are you, I don't know. I see that a lot, I think. And I think that's what we fall victim to, us professional dads, right? Because I was a financial advisor for a year. I was an insurance agent. I wore the suit and tie, the biggest costume in the world, and I hated every minute of it. And we do that though to get validation from the outside world more so than I think we generally have the right reasons for doing it most of the time. Most of the time. So think about your legacy for yourself first. And then also just think about like, well, I'm gonna tell you this one. I'm gonna leave you with this real quick. I had a conversation with Tyler Atwell. I think I was talking to Tyler, and he says, Jason, he's like, what if you're never destined? What if you are never destined to become a millionaire? He's like, what if that's not your legacy? He says, what if it just never happens? He's like, are you okay with that? And he goes, what if your legacy was to make your daughter a millionaire? Wow. Would you be okay with that? And I was like, and he was like, you don't need, most of the fruits from your business right now. He's like, you don't need it all, right? He's like, what if your legacy was just making your daughter a millionaire? And I thought about it and was like, huh. And I've personally dealt with these beliefs and challenges where my wife has asked me, in terms of like everything I do for all the people and all the relationships and everything I'm trying to like help everyone online, right? Or out in my community or whatever. And my wife asked me one day, she said, Jason, she's like, why isn't being a dad just good enough? Like, why isn't it enough to just be a good husband and a good father? I'm like, well, because I got to have a business too, right? And my business needs to help other people, and I have to like achieve this and accomplish that. And so you think about that, right? Like, what if dads realized that the most important thing they can do to leave a legacy first is to just be the best damn husband and fathers that they were created to be. And whatever else happens outside of that is just icing on the cake.
I love that, man. That is so good. Dude. Jason, I can't wait to get my hands on this book, dive in, and really explore it. Speaking of books, I got two last little questions to kind of leave us with before we take off. Is there a book that you're reading right now that is just a must-have that you would recommend to anybody watching this?
Let's see.
Or one that you've read recently?
Yeah. Did we already mention Father-Daughter Conversations? That one is so good.
It's so good. I can't wait to get
Second to that one, though, honestly, I read a book. I'm reading a book, right? I'm reading a book. This is for couples, right? So if you're a husband or a wife, or you can implement it in any of your area of your life, I think, right? But there's a book called Love and Respect by Dr. Eckridge. It is this one, Emerson, by Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. It's called Love and Respect.
All right.
Book. And some people listening might be more faith-based or Latin, give or take, right? He's a Christian, is all I'm saying. I think that's the book, right? But in a nutshell, it's one concept. It's called Love and Respect. And he talks about the crazy cycle. And he simply says, women, when they're upset, most often feel unloved. And husbands, when they are upset, it's because they feel disrespected. And so, like, no matter what the issue is, no matter what you think it is, right? 90% of the time, it's because I felt like my wife was disrespectful and your wife feels like you were unloving. And so the crazy cycle is when the husband continues to be unloving to his wife, the wife continues to react disrespectfully. And when the wife reacts disrespectfully, the husband in turn continues to be unloving. So the crazy cycle just keeps going. So it's never about the dishes not done or the trash not done. She said, why didn't you take out the trash? And you said, why are you disrespecting me? I'm going to take it out when I get a minute. I'm going to get it. Don't worry about it. Don't ask me. I got it. And she feels like, why doesn't he that's not very loving. A, the way he responded, or B, the fact he couldn't just take out the trash when we got done with dinner, or he couldn't just, help me do it now because I was cleaning the kitchen, or like, and so one of the hardest things for me and the best things with that has been was just that concept, like that punch, that premise, and the fact that he says the first person who says sorry is the one, the most mature person is the first one who's willing to say sorry.
Yeah.
Stop the crazy cycle.
Yeah. So that I was going to ask you, like, how do you break the cycle? And it's just who comes out to say
Yeah,
sorry first. Like, catch
because
yourself in the moment.
I'm stubborn, feeling like she's so disrespectful. So you have to say, honey, I'm sorry if my actions felt unloving to you. And then she's instantly like, her
Yeah.
whole, like this bubble of like anger, it just
Yeah.
deflates. And they're like, oh. And then she should say, I'm sorry if my actions to you felt disrespected or disrespectful.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Dude, that
But
leads me to one last thing, because word vomit is a thing, and Brian Regan is my favorite comedian, and I love his joke about word vomit. Like, it just goes out there, and it's like, oh no, that's too late. And in his case, in the joke, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but he's talking about how, like, the number one thing you never ever 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 guess on is pregnancy. You never would want to say, like, hey, when's the baby due? Oh, I was like, the word vomits is out there. She's like, what baby? Oh, the pandas at the zoo, they were having a baby, I heard, and I was just wondering when the babies do. He's like, so that's the context of the joke about word vomit with Brian Regan. But like, in these scenarios, I catch myself all the time thinking, man, if I could just tame my tongue and not choose the words and not let it, it's like, choose your battles, right? Like, yes, honey, or yes, I'll just take that trash out, or whatever the thing is. This morning for us, getting my daughter ready to go out the door, it's going to be 65 degrees here, and 65 in Colorado is actually pretty warm. It feels warmer than 65. So
yeah,
I told Lillian Grace that that's my daughter's name. She could put on like a spring jacket. Getting ready to go out the door, mom says, no, that's not a warm enough jacket. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Were you outside yesterday? Like, it was so nice. Like, even Kyler was out there with no jacket. And she's like, I'm just trying to keep our kids warm, Dusty. Like, and so it was just, if I had never said that one stupid thing, it was like the word vomit,
yeah, yeah.
You're like, yeah, word vomit.
No, I'm just thinking, like, to me, I just thought instantly, for me, if Chandra said that to me, my reaction is like, well, that's disrespectful. I was just telling her she can go without a jacket. Like, and that's why I'm like, um, yeah, word vomit. What was the question?
Yeah, well, I guess it wasn't even really a question. It was just me being reminded of, like, in conversation between our spouses, how oftentimes I have word vomit, and I'm like, man, I wish I just would have never even said anything.
Yeah,
So, hey,
yeah.
we'll leave it with this. If you could broadcast any message to the world, what would that one message be? And I love how Curran, if you've heard him ask this question before, he phrases it as, if everybody opened up their windows tomorrow morning and they all saw the same billboard, they looked outside. What you have the creative control to put any message you want on that billboard. What would your billboard say, Jason?
My billboard would simply say, be a present father today.
Love that.
So I tell people all the time, I know exactly what life feels like to not have a dad. I know what it was like to be fatherless. I know what it was like, to somewhat feel that absent father. And I know that every single day there are millions and millions of dads that make the choice every day to just not be present. And at the end of the day, we have the choice to just simply do a little bit better today at being fully present, better connected, and fully engaged with our daughters. And we have to just strive for that every day. And so I think that's what the billboard would say.
I love it, man. I really appreciate your time. I value your time today. Where can people find you? They can find the book on Amazon, Father Daughter Conversations. Where's this the TEDx? Where can we see that? Was that recorded?
Yeah, the TEDx talks on YouTube. You can find that. It's called Fatherless to Fatherhood: The Journey.
Okay.
Um, you can you you can be the other 11,001 person who's seen it, and
Yeah.
didn't leave a comment because most dads don't. Anyway, man. Yeah, no, that's Fatherless to Fatherhood: The Journey. It was my TEDx talk that I delivered at my alumni, my college. I graduated Saginaw Valley State University. It was their inaugural TEDx event, and I was the very first speaker as well. The theme was roots and wings, and I shared the full story of how I lost my dad and everything I went through with that. So that was one of my proudest moments. So they can find the TEDx talk on YouTube. They can find the book. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, what's your social platform of choice? Like, if someone wanted to connect with you, or where would they connect with you socially on online?
Oh, I'd have find me on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook, just Jason Pockrandt, or they can look for my. I have a new Facebook group that's getting relaunched called the Conversation Corner.
Okay.
So they can look that up and be connected, where we have conversations that transform lives.
Sweet. Well, I'll put all the links and all the good stuff in the description below and all that fun stuff. But man, I can't wait to chat with you again and just continue building a relationship with you, man. I'm so glad that we were able to connect today.
Yeah, awesome. It was great.
All righty. Well,
Appreciate
we'll
it.
chat. We'll chat soon.
All right.
All righty. Bye.